Oh, Brandon with Unlimited Life, and welcome to the show. This is so exciting for me today. Being the host of Unlimited Life, I always strive to bring you the very best tools and techniques to be able to really stretch beyond those boundaries and beyond those borders, and to really have the kind of life that you know that you dream of and that you deserve, and really how to have that heaven on earth, how to be here in an unlimited body, in a limited form, and to have everything in your life just flow effortlessly. And I can't imagine a better guest to really teach us how to do that and share with us those sacred tools and knowledge than today's guest, which is Dr. Anastasia Chopelas. And she's absolutely amazing. I was talking to her at the top of the show, and I was just sharing with her, there is something so radiant about her energy, so vibrant. The day that I met her, we were sitting at a very long table. If you imagine Oliver with the very long tables, and there was just like a beam around her. There was such a strong presence and such a lightness and such a joyous energy, almost like a euphoria giggle inside your spirit and soul, just being in her energy field. And then when we were talking about what she does, it's like, of course, this is somebody who actually can move energy effortlessly through space and through these veils, and we're going to talk about how she does that and how that can really assist you in your life and in your journey. And she is the founder of the Diamond Healing Method, which is a very sophisticated healing technique that includes molecular and vibrational healing, nutritional, herbal medicine, fitness, and lifestyle. And after completing a master's degree in geoscience at Caltech, Dr. Chopelas graduated from UCLA with a Ph.D. in chemistry. So she's actually a scientist, and she's learned how to take this science and how to move energy effortlessly and how to heal in the process, which is really remarkable. She spent the following 38 years as geophysical research at the prestigious institutions, including the Max Planck Institute for Chemistry in Mainz, Germany, the University of Nevada in Las Vegas, the University of Washington, and UCLA, where she also contributed chapters in numerous books and published articles that have since become the genesis for all of their courses. And it was while she was studying mineral vibrations at really extreme conditions and the properties that were inherent to them that she became just innately aware of this gift that she had. It was her ability to really psychically tune into cellular, emotional, and physical levels of all human beings. And all human beings is all human beings. That means that you are included in this, that she is able to tap into every single person. And I see her do that in her conversations. I see her do that in the way that she is present with people and the way she can feel their energy field. It is truly such a special and remarkable gift. And soon after this realization, she really began to dive into esoteric science. And she studied Reiki. She became a Reiki Master. She studied psychic phenomena, shiatsu, reflexology, acupressure, which is she was able to learn how to heal emotional distress, physical dis-ease, spiritual unrest, and she trained with master healers who taught her how to target healing energy of fifth. It's like the first day with me, new tongue today. I love that. That means the energy and the vibration is so high. So you have to know, for me, to be vibrating at this level, how energetically powerful she is. So all of these masters really taught her how to target healing energy efficiently and how to tailor all of her protocols specifically to the individuals. And being able to do that, that really significantly shifted the health of every client that she has ever worked with. So her background in understanding quantum mechanics helped Anastasia see how healing energy permeates times, dimension, and, of course, space. And her background and knowledge of chemistry allowed her to envision and to create healing from the smallest molecular levels. And truly, it was her knowledge of vibration and energy and optics that provides the basic of much of her healing. And I'm so excited to talk to her today because I know that she is new to my world, but all of you are very familiar with my journey. So this should be such an interesting conversation. And now she is blazing a new trail via the Diamond Method and she has helped hundreds of people move out of disease. She's written 2 books. One is How to Get Rid of Bad Cholesterol. It's such a great title. And also How to Get Rid of Bad Stress. Both the books are practical guides for regaining health and for getting off medication, which wouldn't that be wonderful if we can get off our medications today. She lives really close. She's here in California, which is wonderful, but she works all over the world. So if you want to work with her, we're going to talk about how you can do that. She has a private practice. She travels extensively, and she teaches people all over the world how to maintain and sustain healing for long term. I just can't think of a more remarkable gift. So welcome today to our show, Dr. Anastasia Chopelas. Anastasia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nicole, so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
You know, it's so funny because I could, as I'm talking, it's so interesting because I'm actually leaving my body, as I'm reading your bio, just because your vibration has opened all these doorways, which I think is just incredible. I mean, the pathway and that bridge between energy and healing and light and core essence is just such a special doorway. And it is so wide open when someone even just looks at you. And then to hear you talk, and I had the honor and the privilege this morning to actually be able to really go through your website. And what was interesting for me is as soon as I went on your website, it just epitomized who you are, because every page had its own energy and feeling. And when I was going through your list of classes that you train people in and how to do this energy work, just the phraseology of what is being taught and how this information is being moved, it was almost like it took you there in that present moment in time. It wasn't like some faraway thing. It was in that moment you actually understood that you could do this, this is possible, and that it works, just even in the words. So we're so thrilled you are here today.
Someone asked me what's required to learn how to heal oneself or to learn this healing technique, and I said, well, you need a physical body, and that's about it.
I love that you heal all humans, not just some of them. I think that that's one of my favorite parts. That was so cute.
And I also heal animals. I've had a lot of clients come to me with troubled animals, and usually when there's somebody that's, ill themselves, their animal will absorb that illness. And so I'll work actually with both the human and the animal together. And I've had really good results.
That's incredible. That's so fantastic. So, beginning with you is so interesting because if I'm looking at a tapestry, this grand tapestry of energy and light, and you say, okay, so where is the first thread? And this isn't even a typical interview where I say, okay, what's your background? And you grew up and when you were 5 you fell off the swing or something and hit your head. This is, you have a science background. And from that science background birthed this amazing resource. And so why don't we begin there and talk about the science background and how that became a gift of energy and movement and a field of the great beyond?
Well, that story is also remarkable because I didn't know that people didn't choose what they wanted to do. I chose to be a scientist when I was about 7. My dad brought us a map of the universe home, and I looked at it and I go, wow, there are other planets. And I was so stunned by this whole concept that my whole being just sort of focused and targeted on learning science. So even when I was really little, people had asked me, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, a scientist. And I had no role models. All the role models in all the movies and everybody were these men in white coats. There were no women. The women were the ones that served the coffee and, catered to the men. So I was just like, I knew that's what I wanted, and I just took a beeline to it. I took all the science I could through school. When I got to college, I was like a science glutton. I took all these courses, and nothing was too hard. I just kept taking as much as I could. And I even jumped around. I went from physics to geology to chemistry, so I even have, a very broad background in many of the sciences, not just one. And so, that's how I got started. But parallel to that, I always knew that I was like super sensitive, and all my friends and even my family would always call me too sensitive because I would focus in on people and I would feel what they were feeling, and then I would start crying if it was something bad, like if they were angry or anxious or something, and they would always call me like super sensitive and oversensitive and too sensitive. So it kind of ran in parallel. And until I learned how to protect myself from people and, realize what were my feelings and what were their feelings, and then I also realized that I could read people's thoughts sometimes, that, it became, science was a good retreat because I could just dive into it and not pay attention to, everybody around me. So that's pretty much my story, and I became a research scientist and a professor, so I actually have about 50 publications worldwide in the work that I did, which was studying vibrations of minerals at extreme conditions, high pressure, high temperature, and sometimes both. And I developed a whole branch of new work that was kind of blazing trails in new areas. And I came up with several concepts that have become now kind of basic concepts in geophysics. And I'm actually a well-known name there. And if you Google my name, you'll find, dozens and dozens of pages on these topics. So that's where I decided 2 years ago to give that path up to pursue this, because I found how effective, and for me it was extremely rewarding to continue and to actually make a bigger impact in people's lives than I could with the science.
That's fantastic. I mean, just to have that background. I love when you say nothing was too difficult. I just jumped around and went, from one thing to the next. And it's interesting that you say that, because I have that same ability in the physical world. That I would jump off cliffs into raging oceans and ride bareback horses and, go to the top of a black diamond run and just follow someone down and have a ski instructor say, how long have you been skiing? And say, 2 hours. And they said to me, no, not today. I mean, how long have you been skiing? And it's like, no, today's my first day. So anything physical, my body just did, And so I've never talk to anybody who had that same experience, but you have that experience in the science world, which I love. I mean, that's just fascinating to me. Yes.
Not quite as extreme as you are. I'm also an athlete, and I'm pretty much the same way. I put ice skates on, and everybody says, how long have you been ice skating? Oh, I just started.
Right.
I think maybe you have the same skill I do, but you just don't even realize it yet. Maybe you haven't tried.
So, well, I absolutely, think it's just remarkable. And then when I was talking to you, you were talking about a machine that you use, or that you're able to read people's energy fields. We were talking about the healing of the brain, and
Yes,
go ahead.
I'll tell that story. A longtime family friend, I've known him since he was a little boy, was in a very bad car accident where a truck T-boned him while he was on a bicycle. And the worst part of it, he broke an arm and a leg, and his brain was so scrambled that the doctor said he wouldn't live, that he had no brain activity. And so my parents and his parents are good friends. So my mom called me up and said, "Is there anything you can do?" And so I went to the hospital with my parents, and he was laying there hooked up to a lot of machines, and they had him in an induced coma to help reduce the swelling in his head, because maybe there was some chance. And so he was under this ice blanket, just laying there still as nothing, and all these bells were ringing on these monitors. So I tapped into him, found him floating above his body like he was going to escape, and he had his life force was down to 4%, which meant imminent death. when we're down that low, that's usually what happens. That's something that I measure. And so I coaxed him back down into his body, and he said, well, it's going to hurt. And I said, well, it's going to hurt worse if you have these issues to solve in this lifetime, and if you don't solve them, you'll have to do it again. So that'll hurt just as bad. So as I'm coaxing him back down, I start working on his brain, and on that day I did 7 hours of brain healing. But even in the first 20 minutes, as I started working on him, all the monitors dropped their values into the safe zone, and all the bells stopped ringing. So I was really fascinated by that because I'd never seen, I never worked with anybody hooked up to a machine before, and to have the evidence that I was actually shifting his life dramatically at that point was to me overwhelming. I'm a scientist, so I like to watch, I like to have numbers and needles and things like that to watch them move. And the doctors told his parents that he wasn't going to make it. And I kept tapping into him every day. I didn't have to be in the hospital. Once I connect with someone either by voice or by physical presence, I don't need to be in proximity anymore. So I kept connecting to him every day. I kept boosting him a little bit because he kept falling back down in his life force. And I told my parents he would wake up 3 weeks later, and he woke up 3 weeks and 1 day later. And he's back home now, and he's functioning better than he ever has. And he's now has a really great relationship with his parents, which never existed in his life. He's in his mid-50s. So that, to me, was a very exciting healing.
I love that you're sharing this, and for people to know that it's possible, and that you can remap your brain, and that you can reconnect all these circuits. And I was looking at some of your blogs on Asperger's and fibromyalgia, and so people come to you with all different arenas and aspects, and how do you begin, and how does someone find you, and how does someone work with you, and all of that?
Well, the easiest way to find me is to go to diamondmethod.com, and that will take you. You can either write me an email or call the number that's there, which is 310-692-4036. And that will send me a text, and I call you back immediately if I'm not on a phone call with another client. And so the way I begin with somebody is that I first need to connect with them. So I have to hear their voice if I've never met them, or be in their physical presence. And I connect, and I immediately start taking readings to see where in their body is the energetic lack. We have a series of energetic openings in our body that's usually corresponds to a collection of receptors. And these receptors actually not only are like hormone receptors or polypeptide receptors such as insulin or glucagon receptors, but they're also, they collect energy from the outside. And if there is a blockage in any one of those, let's say your knee has a blockage, a lot of times people experience knee pain or knee trouble because the knee is not being fed. So I look to see where there's a lack, and I boost all that up. And then I start going through the systems. I start looking at whether your spirit is aligned in your body. I realign it if it isn't. I look to see where in the mental body there's a problem. If there's been a brain injury, I usually spot it right away, and then I'll work to heal that. And what people don't realize is that a brain injury, even if you had it when you were 2 years old, it will stay with you your whole life unless you have somebody reactivate those areas. Brain scans are really notorious now, like Dr. Amen's work, where he shows you old injuries. An athlete has had many traumas on his head. You can see that his brain looks pretty holy, like Swiss cheese, instead of being full like it's supposed to be. So someone like that can come to me and actually have those areas quickly re-energized. People with PTSD also have holes in their brain, lack of activity. And then I move on to the physical body after I've gone through the spiritual and the emotional. I also look for emotions that have been locked in the body because they will affect it. So places in your organs like your kidneys and your bladder will hold fear, and your liver and your gallbladder will hold anger, and your heart and your lungs will hold sadness. So there are different organs that resonate with different styles of emotions. And so I'll look for those. You've either inherited them, they may have come from a past life. If you believe in that, I can't really say whether we have had them or not, but what I will tell you is that model works, because whenever I clear a past life timeline, people are released from these things. And then I check for DNA, and I check for family DNA, because I can also help rewrite the code on your DNA. Your DNA doesn't have just the information of what eye color and hair color you have, but it also carries a lot of the family information, the tribal information, and the emotional information that your particular tribe or spiritual group has. And sometimes you outgrow it and it doesn't serve you anymore. So that's when I work to remove it. And then I work on each specific part of the body that is now failing, and I bring it back up to its full vibrancy, and often will re-lengthen the telomeres. So in other words, I'm making you younger from the inside out. And the telomeres, the little things, the end of DNA that shorten, people might not know that shorten as you age. And so I do is I re-lengthen them and then tell the rest of the organ, gland, or system to rejuvenate. And a lot of times when people come in person, I'll watch them shift. They look 10 years younger when they walk out because the vibrancy comes back. It's a really awesome feeling watching this happen.
Oh, just to see people be revitalized and light, and it just must be such an incredible feeling just to be able to watch the process. It's like watching a flower blossom and grow right before your eyes, or watching something open, or that caterpillar become a butterfly or something.
It's way better than anything I've ever experienced watching this happen. The most striking and awesome thing that happened is I love to work with children, is watching an autistic boy go from having absolutely no emotion on his face to watching his eyes flash with emotion inside of 20 minutes. It was the most astonishing thing, and I just love that. And he never went back. He kept developing. And not only that, but I usually work with special needs people for at least a month, because you can't reconnect all of the things that aren't connected too quickly. It's too much of a shock. So I do it in a stepwise process. And watching him go from one-word answers to speaking to me in paragraphs, and him re-engaging his body, and then hearing from his mom that his doctor was shocked at how much his internal health had improved. A lot of times children like this have physical problems that require a lot of medical care. So that had also improved dramatically. And so that was I think my most shocking and most satisfying, just watching this happen before my eyes. It was like the most incredible feeling.
That's beautiful. Oh, my goodness. It's so beautiful. And I know when we were talking about the machines and, talking about the remapping of the brain and the brain injury like Swiss cheese, and I know that when I'm working with people all the time, that when I'm looking at somebody's body energetically, I always think of it like a circuit breaker, and that when some of the switches are switched off, and that people don't even realize they could have been 7 years old and they could have been coughing, and a switch shut down so they didn't break a little rib or something. And so that, to me, it's just going back in and seeing where those switches are shut and turning those switches back on the physical body. But I love that you start it with the emotional body and then bring it into the physical body. And I think that journey to go from one pathway to the other is so rich and it's so full. And I can imagine the vibrancy must just be remarkable, just to be able to see somebody really rekindle all of those areas of light and energy in their field and in their strength and in their vitality. And in their life force.
Well, and also bring people
yes.
that were born. A lot of the children, it's actually a much higher incidence than there used to be of children that are not. They're just simply not connected when they're born. It's like an accident at birth. It's a misprogramming, and to be able to bring them for them to be who they were always meant to be. That's what's so fantastic. When I was a professor, I taught students from the ages of about 18, and they'd go up to about 35, but generally they were from 18 to about 25. And I love working with these college students and watching them also come alive and realize their dreams. A lot of them were pre-medical, pre-dental students, pre-pharmacy, pre-optometry, and pre-engineering. And just to watch them blossom, that was exciting, but this is 10 times more exciting.
Okay. I absolutely am loving this. Okay, so now the big question of the day is, what is the diamond method?
Okay, well, so let's start with your traditional energy healing. A lot of people are familiar with Reiki. It's a very popular technique. There are a bazillion Reiki Masters and Reiki practitioners. And I did study this 20 years ago, and I thought it was marvelous. I was joined. The way I discovered is that I was attending a self-help group. I was living in Germany at the time, and in that group were these marvelous women. One was learning shiatsu, another one was learning foot reflexology, and I became the final exam for these two particular women. And so I had to do a series of 10 treatments with each of them, and so I started learning about these alternative healings. And Germany is really big in homeopathy and alternative techniques, so that was a good place for me to be at the time. And so one of the women tells me, well, Anne, you have to come to Reiki. And I said, Reiki? What's Reiki? And she goes, oh, don't worry about that. Just come. And because I loved her as a really good friend, I said, okay, I trusted her. So I said, okay. So I go. She says, just wear something comfortable and bring a mat to lay on. I said, okay. So we go to this evening, and there's like all these candles and all this spooky stuff, and I'm going, what's going on? And so then we started doing the exercises, and I could feel they had us blindfolded, and we're poking into our aura or energy field, and I could feel everything they were doing, and I was the only one that could feel everything accurately. And I'm sitting there going, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So then I started practicing it, realized that whatever I was putting my hands on people and touching them, that they were actually feeling it, like they'd feel this intense heat. So what you're doing is you're channeling energy through your body into somebody else. So it's from the outside. You're not using your own personal energy, which some healers don't realize that they're doing, and that's why they get depleted. So you're supposed to get the energy from source. So we push the energy through us and into somebody, and I said, well, so how do you know where to put it? Oh, no, it knows where to go. Really? So I practiced it, but it was like using a wet noodle. It would just do a little bit, it'd tickle a little bit, it'd feel good for a little while, and some people actually got really good at it and can do really marvelous things with it, but I didn't find it that satisfying. So as time went on, I did a lot of reading, like you mentioned earlier in my bio, did a lot of reading, I did a lot of studying, I read dozens of books on different healing modalities. I don't remember all the authors, but one in particular was like Barbara Ann Brennan's Healing Hands kind of book, and I started developing techniques based on that. And a couple of years ago, I came upon a healer who mentioned to me that she grew her thyroid back after it was surgically removed. And it was like my ears perked up, and I said, oh, I got to know about this. So I learned it. And that technique was simply also directing energy, but what I found that it still wasn't powerful enough. I couldn't make sure that it would do what I wanted to. So if somebody was have trouble sleeping, their pineal gland was not producing enough melatonin at night, so I would heal that, and then they'd be sleepy all day long. So then I started thinking, well, if I applied a function to that, and it cycled in and out all day, so I applied a regular function. It's called a sine wave. I applied a regular function so it goes up at night and down in the day, and then I brought the other feel-good chemicals like dopamine and serotonin up during the day, and the other monoamine oxidases up during the day, and dropped them at night. So I did this double cycle, and it worked magically. So then I started doing other things like applying different colored filters to people so they would get the right vibrations in their body and block out the negative ones. And then I started applying, of course, the biochemistry I know really well, so I would start imagining I was putting together the molecules one by one, because in the chemistry studies I learned that. So I started adding in all of these scientific elements that to me seemed totally natural and that another healer actually doesn't know how to do, and that's the thing that I am in the process of putting together a course to teach. So that's what the diamond healing method is. It's a combination of all the science that I know, the physiology, the biology, and all that, combined with directing energy where it needs to go. So I can actually tell it what to do, and it does it.
That's just fascinating. And how did you come up with the title Diamond Healing Method?
Oh, well, diamonds and I have a special affinity. My work in geophysics was I used diamonds as pressure anvils, and so I actually have still one of the instruments in which you put material between two diamonds and compress it, and you can study it by various techniques. And the other thing is that while I was at the university, one of the classes I taught was gems and minerals, and the students loved the diamond chapter. So that grew to like 2 weeks or 3 weeks out of the 10-week course. And then the other thing is that the study of diamond is also totally fascinating. Imagine the softest mineral that we have is graphite, which is pure carbon, and we use it as lubricants and dry lubricant. And the hardest material in the earth is a diamond, which is also pure carbon. So there's like all these fascinating aspects to diamond that to me just seemed like the natural choice to choose that particular term, because diamonds have always been a part of my work. So I just decided to continue the tradition.
I love it, and I love the sparkle and the shine and the glimmer and the glow and just the effervescence and the idea of the diamond healing method. And as I was looking through, and I want to get into some of your courses, and we have somebody online that wants to talk to you, so I've got so much for you, and so much is going through my head. But I have a personal question. So I was talking about at the top of the show that you do not know a lot about my background, the history, which is really funny because all of the listeners do. But back in 2001, I was in an incredible car accident, and one that is what launched me into now being a transformational speaker around the world, and it's what switched gears from my being a romance writer to actually writing books on empowerment and on transformation, and literally being a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds and being able to help people worldwide. But this car that I was in was just like, the story you were talking about at the top of the show. I was hit by a drunk driver, and the passenger door went through the driver's side, and the car exploded into a ball of flames and disintegrated and was gone. And I actually thought I watched my death when I watched the explosion. And then some man said, "Ma'am, should I call the police?" And I said, "You can see me?" Because I thought for sure I watched the explosion, and then I watched myself die in that accident. And then in the hospital, immediately I let them know, that I was a dancer and an acrobat. I connected to the physical me, not to the writing me, not to the acting me, not to the healing and the humanitarian me, but it was the physical me that I was holding on to. And I was told that my body was basically destroyed. And by, every medical diagnosis. I should not be walking. I should not be doing, I couldn't even sit in a chair. My shoulder blew out of the socket. It was like a rag doll. I just literally would sit up and fall right over. And I made a couple deals with the universe, and one of them was if I could put myself back together again, there wouldn't be a day that goes by that I don't teach people what I know about the unlimited potential of the physical body, and thus we are here today. And within a year of, my body being blown up and destroyed, I climbed the Great Wall of China in record time, and I went to work as a contortionist with the Chinese acrobats, and then came back and said, okay, now I'm going to teach. And so I was able to put my body back together again, and now I can travel the world and help other people recalibrate their bodies. But by what you're saying, is there still trauma? Is there still Swiss cheese then in the brain or in the energetic field that I may not even be aware of, even though I've been able to physically put myself back together again and do all of the things that I did before and even more? Or is there still energy that could have holes or loops?
Well, I would have to do a reading on you, and I don't read people unless they give me express permission. And there could be, but I haven't looked. I don't look into people until they tell me go ahead and look. So we could explore that either now or later. But it just depends. Your story of transformation is just an example of how we are unlimited. That our thoughts can transform. Our belief system can transform things incredibly. So I think that that's the reason why my work is successful too, is that I completely believe, understand, and think that what I'm doing is actually working, and it does. And the people that don't, there are some people that block it because they're afraid of it. Some people think that it's coming from somewhere dark, and I don't know why. It's like this superstitious kind of thing, and I think that it's the dark side that makes them think that. But when I explain where I think it comes from, a lot of people get calm about it. And my being a scientist also helps because, I see the physical world in a different way than other people. Like when I look at things, I understand down to the atomic level what's happening in everything because of the studies I've done. So when I see a rainbow, it's still beautiful to me, but I know exactly how it works. I know exactly where the sun is reflecting and how it hits a raindrop and how it comes back and how it forms the bow and how it forms the second bow and how it creates the dark stripe between. I know exactly how it happens.
Boy, that just sends shivers. I mean, my whole body is vibrating as you say that. The fact that you have that sacred knowledge, Anastasia, is, gosh, that's gorgeous. I mean, that's like the exquisite gift of the universe to be able to read a rainbow, to be able to see a rainbow. I mean, truly, that's the magic and powers of the unicorns and the fairies and the goddess energy of all that is.
Yeah, people think it's black magic. It's just beautiful, really. It's just nature. But knowing how everything works, like when I look at something, I just look at. I dissect it down to its minutest thing, and whenever I read something, it just gets incorporated into that whole tapestry of knowledge that I have, and it just builds the picture bigger and bigger. And so I think that my science, my love of science, not just love, but it was like a drive to learn it. It's still there. I read constantly, and study constantly, and learn constantly, both on science and on health. I've also been a health kind of nut. In 1960, my parents were the health nuts down the block. We ate yogurt and whole bread when everybody else Wonder Bread and and peanut butter and jelly. So.
And you were the healthier child because of it. Well, first of all, I absolutely give you, permission to look into me, but I will do, I love to do a scan when we're not on the air because we actually have, somebody that's waiting that would love you to look into, something going on with them right now. And so I would love to be able to bring her on the show, but you absolutely do have permission to scan me, and I would be, very interested because, like I said, I've I'm so grateful of the gift that I've been given, and that I'm able to not only put my own body back together again, but certainly that I can do it for people around the world. But when you were talking about the fact that, when you have been hit like that, and certainly, my car exploded. So it just made me think, going, well, I wonder. So, so I would love you to be able to actually look at that, but I do have somebody that's on hold that would love, to be able to talk to you about something that's going on in their body, and so I'd love to be able to bring her on. So thank you, though. Hold on just one moment. Hi, Sandra. Welcome to the show.
Oh, hi. Thank you for taking my call. That's great.
My pleasure. So you had a question for Dr. Anastasia?
Well, I wondered if she was doing a scan. I would be interested in having her scan me. Plus, I do have a question about a neighbor actually that had surgery. I don't know, about 9 years ago, and they severed the spinal column, and he is in tremendous pain. I do Reiki as well, and I was sending him Reiki energy, but he's very in a really desperate situation. So I wondered if I could pass this, whether this would be something that would be a really positive venue for him, because he's had Reiki before. It's not been, it doesn't solve the problem, because he's got all the scar tissue. At least this is how I feel, and he's really in dire straits. He just wants to end his life.
Okay, so they severed the spinal column, or when they went into the spinal sac and worked around his cord, and it developed scar tissue, which is creating the pain. Is that what's going on?
Well, they severed the spinal column when they did the surgery. He had tingling in his fingers, and they severed it, and he was paralyzed for a time. I don't even know how long, but he is in constant pain now, and
basically from the neck down, sounds like.
Yeah. He shakes terribly. It's really painful to watch him.
So let me just tell you my experience. My mother had a very similar surgery. She had a tumor at the base of her brain, and she had that removed, and they had to shave off the tumor off of the spinal cord, and of course they nicked it. She lost sun sensitivity in her fingers, and lost all sensation on the underside of her arms. And when she has X-ray, they showed that her spinal nerve had atrophied so much that they could barely see it. And what I've done with her is it's a stem cell protocol where you actually take the information. We all come with an energetic blueprint. There's a lot of evidence that we have this. Kirlian photography is one of those evidences, but there's a lot of evidence that we have this energetic blueprint, and we're born with it, and it gives the body the instructions of how to grow, and it's all the traumas and our belief system that the trauma is permanent that has us move away from this blueprint. So what I do is I bring the information from the blueprint back into the body. And in my mother's case, her spinal nerve has gotten thicker, and she's 80 years old, and she's actually gained more functionality. She has other physical problems that's preventing her from developing, but she's able to stand up a lot better. She's less shaky on her feet. And we expect her to stand up. She's not able to stand up completely, but we expect her to be able to stand up within the year. It's a long process. It takes some effort, and it also takes cooperation on the other person's part, but it is possible to regrow the nerve and relieve the pain. I can relieve pain generally almost instantly with most people. Sometimes it doesn't work, and it'll take a few days. I re-met somebody that I knew from high school recently, and he has been suffering from lower disc pain for years and has been taking tramadol for it. And within a day, he was off the tramadol. It doesn't hurt anymore. So,
wow.
yeah. So it is something that is worth a try. I don't know of any other technique that can possibly relieve him. And the other thing that I can do is all of my scars have almost faded. I used to have a lot of scars. They've almost faded because of the healing on my skin that I've done. So that's possible. And then recently I had somebody who had a fistula in her spine, which is a bundle of veins, arteries, and nerves. And the normal procedure is to open the spinal sac, cut it out, and patch it back together. And usually there's a very long recovery time. And she was at my house 2 days before her scheduled surgery. And I just untangled it, I sealed it, and I told her 2 days later to please make sure that they re-scan your back before they do the surgery, and they couldn't find it. So, there are a lot of things that can be done. I just would have to scan him, work with him, and.
Okay, well, I'm going to pass the information along because I just feel this is something really awesome that will work for him.
Thank you so much.
Can you, I don't really have any major issues going on with me. Can you do a scan for me?
Sure, I'll do one. It just takes a second. So what I do is I go through the seven major energy channels, the 5 parts of the brain, and then I take some general readings, and it'll tell me what's going on with you. So it just takes a second, and I can talk while I'm doing it. It's like driving a car. You can talk, still do your thing.
Okay, awesome.
And Sandra, this gentleman has such a good friend in you. Thank you so much for calling on his behalf, and I love the fact that you did that.
Well, I just want to do whatever I can to help.
Truly a testimonial to what a good person you are. So I'm so honored and grateful that you called in today.
Well, thank you. And I am a healer, and I'm learning another healing modality, and I'm still searching, whether this is something that, that can be taught or that I could learn. Let's put it that way.
What I do is very teachable. It's a very teachable technique. I'm getting fairly good readings on you while I'm doing that, and that's a testament to you being a healer yourself. So there are a couple of low places, and if you want me to talk about them, I will on the show.
Sure, that's fine.
There are low places, but there's nothing dramatic. There's nothing dramatic going on. Maybe the frontal lobe. I don't know if you've ever bumped your head. Like a lot of kids fall down and bump their head, and the frontal lobes usually have something. Most people do have that.
Well, I've hit my head numerous times.
Yeah. So it's showing. It's showing on the frontal lobes. All I can say is when my frontal lobes were healed, dramatic things happened. I feel like my IQ went up several, tens of points. Things that used to take me a minute to solve would take me 15 seconds. I mean, it's just a dramatic shift.
Oh, well. Okay. And how long would it take for would it be 1 session, 2 sessions?
Well, I generally like to do 3 sessions because, and so what will happen is there'll be 2 one-hour sessions and then 2 half-hour sessions because it usually takes a month for the body to shift. Like some people I've worked with for an hour. I had an asthma client, and within that hour I did a healing on her lungs, and she stopped using her inhaler, and she can breathe deeply again. So some people that works like that, but in general, I find that it takes a full month to do that, and the ones that I didn't do that for, it was a disservice to them because you will revert because you do need things in your lifestyle. If you keep your life the way it was, then it will keep falling back into that pattern.
Right.
And so just the short version is, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always thought.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and there's a slight misalignment of your spirit and your body. So I'll just pull that down right away. That's the easy. Oh, yeah.
Are you still there?
I am.
Yes, we're still here. Yes, Sandra.
Oh,
yes.
I didn't catch what you said.
Yeah. So I just pulled it down. It's now realigned back in your body, and that'll help. That'll help. It rebalances people. Some people say when I do that, they feel lighter immediately.
Oh, actually, I think you're right. Yeah, because I know my heart is has, like, I've been told I need to cry a lot, and it's not always that simple. Let's put it that way.
That just means, it was kind of low in your midsection around your heart. That's where the sadness is stored, and all that would require is draining the sadness out of those areas. And that's what I do is I drain it out and I replace it with a high energy. So the sadness is a low energy vibration of emotion, and I just replace it with a high energy. I drain out the low energy, and it's permanent. It stays away. And yes, a lot of people. I had a woman the first time she came in. She's come in now 4 times. The first time she came in, I had to have a box of tissues next to her. She couldn't even talk anymore. She just cried the whole time she was sitting here. And the last, and you wouldn't even recognize her. She looks 10 years younger. She's vibrant. She's happy. She's laughing. She's joyous. The pain has left her body. She's like looking forward to her life instead of feeling like it wants to end. So, it's just like these emotional changes are dramatic and they're permanent. It's a day-to-day thing. It's just that are stored in your body. And what happens when they're stored in your body is that whenever anything comes close to it, like somebody will make a comment and it just sort of even resembles it, even though they didn't mean it that way, you will take it that way and it will drag you down. So
that's true. That's very true. I took it as being empathic.
But we don't really want to be empathic. We want to be actually observational to see what they're feeling without feeling it ourselves.
Exactly.
That's a great distinction, Anastasia. And you were asking, Anastasia, you also teach. You have courses in this, right? That you were saying what you do is very teachable.
Very teachable, and the first introduction to this, I'm doing a one-day event. It's very inexpensive. It'll be on November 23rd here in the Los Angeles area, and if that works well, I will take it on the road and do it in the major cities in the country in 3 month gaps. But the course that I'm going to start teaching it in January. A full-fledged, course, and some of it will have to be in person, and other parts will be either online or over calls, video calls, or because the material is expensive. In order to learn this, it's helpful to learn bodies. You have to learn parts, but the actual mechanics doing it is it's highly.
Well, Sandra, there you go. So now you have help for your friend, which is just remarkable. And And I'm so glad that you're healthy and that you were able to center. And, I'm going to take Anastasia's class as well because I would love to be able to learn this methodology. And so it would be so nice to meet you there. And I'm so glad that you called in today.
Now, so do we have to be in person for the healings then?
No, you don't have to be in person at all.
Okay.
Like I said, I just did work with you on the phone here. And no, I work with people all over the country. I have a steady client from New York, and we just get on the phone, and she's a regular client. She's had me work with all her 3 sons and herself, and her shifts are also dramatic as well as her son.
But it's just for the teaching part of it then you're talking about. Would have to be in person.
Good. Yeah, it would be good to have one day in person because there are things that are helpful to have activated in person. There's an activation process.
Okay.
And activation process is the thing that opens the channel between the divine energy that comes through you and out, and activating that really helps accelerate the process of raising your own level of vibration to be above a certain level in order to be able to channel this energy and direct it. And so it's good to have one day here, and the rest of the time I'm hoping I can do it by distance.
That's great. And what was the date of that, Anastasia, for the class?
Well, it's November 23rd. That's the introduction. That's the place where I'm calling it Say Yes to Abundance because it is going to help clear blocks for wealth, love, health. Actually, the blocks are similar for all 3. So when you see people that you think are lucky because they have everything, that's because they have mastered clearing their blocks, or they didn't have any in the first place. And all 3 of those things come to them. They're healthy, they're wealthy, and they have the love in their life.
That's great. Well, Sandra, I so look forward to seeing you there, and we have
that would be awesome.
People, but I love you to be able to be there, and I'm so glad that you called in, and I'm really excited also for Anastasia to work with your friend because I know her work is just so remarkable. So
it is awesome. Thank you so much for taking the call.
My pleasure. Wonderful to have you here today. And then we have somebody now, her name is Bree, and she's had a really remarkable story, and she's been dealing with aneurysms throughout her body for quite some time. So I know that she's really looking forward to talking with you, Anastasia. So hold on one second. We'll bring her on.
Okay.
Hi, Bree. Welcome to the show. Bree, hi.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Bree.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering, my first question is if you could possibly scan me. I could also let you know on some things that are happening to see if any private sessions could probably help me out.
Okay. Hold on just a second, and I'll start the scan.
You have such a beautiful voice, Bree. So sweet. So can you call every show?
Sure.
It's so lovely. Oh, what a beautiful energy. So nice. I'm smiling now. And sometimes you just, you hear a sound like children laughing, or a beautiful instrument. You just have such a lovely voice. It's great. I know Anastasia's there working her magic. It's such a remarkable gift that she has. Gosh, I'm just so thrilled, so honored, and so blessed that she's with us today.
Yeah, I'm so glad I showed up.
Very interesting, yes. Where are you calling in from?
Montana.
Oh, my gosh, it's beautiful up there. Oh,
it is really beautiful. It's hot today.
Gorgeous. Oh.
Okay, so the thing that I actually hear it in your voice too. I read voices, so I can hear a lot of what's going on emotionally in you, and you have stored sadness in parts of your body, especially around your heart and lung area, and there's also in your the emotional part of your brain and your primitive brain are low functioning. That usually isn't trauma. That's usually something that you inherited, whether it's a family issue or inherited in a lifetime or from a distant relative. It's come through somewhere. And when those are functioning actually low with the sadness, the stored sadness you probably had nothing to do with, and that's something that can be drained out of your body, and that's probably what's causing your other health issues. And your spirit is very misaligned with your body. So I'm gonna, with your permission, I'll realign it, and that usually helps the health process. But for you, most definitely. For Sandra, she is doing quite well, but in your case, your readings were fairly low in some places, and the place that I see is that there's just emotions stored in where you don't really need to have them anymore. And a lot of people have something that blocks their heart. I had it too. I was born with that, and I had a big fat wall around my heart, and people couldn't see me, and I took it completely down. And so the way Nicole described me was actually a delight, because I'm glad that people can actually see me now. And so taking that wall down and working through those emotions will improve your physical health dramatically.
Okay.
Okay?
Mhm.
Okay, so I've realigned it, and so a little piece of healing that I do at the end is I tell your cells that everything that I'm doing now is the new programming, and the old programming is obsolete. And that way your body understands that that's how it's supposed to be, and the way it was before was just, it was like a mistake, and you don't need that mistake anymore. So what I just did was realign you back in your body, and it really helps promote good health. It balances your mental and your physical body, as well as your emotions. Yeah. So some people feel lighter, some people don't feel anything, but after a few days they'll notice a difference.
Thank you.
And now you've been dealing with these issues for many years, right?
Yes. I was diagnosed when I was 15 with aneurysms. And then I realized at the age of 20.
Yeah, so that sounds like something that you were actually born with, and that you've just carried. It doesn't seem fair, but it just gets carried in your body, and sometimes we come with these. We're born. We have these tasks that we decide to take on, and then when you call somebody like me, that usually means that you're done with it and you're ready to move on to your next phase.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times we take on things that are way too big for anybody to handle. And that sounds like one of those things that you allowed that to be in your body when you were born. We don't realize that we do this, but we do. And it hardly seems fair. And then, clearing those emotions out will actually bring the health back into your body, because it'll allow the energy, the healing energy, to flow into the places that it needs to flow into.
Mm-hmm. Working with you, could I possibly have a chance for my aneurysms and my paralysis to start clearing away?
Yes.
For classes and everything with you? Oh, cool. I mean, sessions. That'd be so cool.
Yes, it would help. It would dramatically. I don't know if you heard the beginning part of the show, but I've produced some really amazing things, and and it surprises me every day. It's like every day I get to watch a miracle happen, and I'm completely devoted to helping people get out of their situations like yours. And I firmly believe that I can help you.
That'd be so awesome. Like, I need it because I don't have anyone that can help me. And if you could help me, that would be just awesome.
Andrea, I think it's so brave and it's so courageous that you called today. And just like Anastasia was saying, the fact that you called means you're ready to now live a new and a different kind of life. And you're ready for that story to be over and for the new story of the health and, you know, your divine life to begin. And so you have to really honor yourself for even making this call and calling in today and being ready to step forward.
Actually, it is very courageous for people to call in and admit that that's where they're at and to admit that they want out, and that is extremely courageous. So thank you for calling.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And we will make sure that you have all the information to reach Anastasia, and I'm really excited for you. So thank you so much for calling, and thank you for your beautiful, sweet voice being on the show today. Just absolutely lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anastasia, I love that you can do this for people, and it's just what an incredible gift. And I love Sandra's question as well when she was asking, you know, can we learn how to do this? And so I saw on the website that you had your intro course, that you have, you know, all sorts of things in your training on how they affect your health and how they hurt your health and the effects on the emotional and mental and physical health. And so it really, it's almost like a kaleidoscope, and it's part of all of these different pictures of the who we are. And I know we have other colors on the line, but I just wanted to quickly touch base on that somebody that's taking classes with you or somebody that's calling that you're saying it takes an entire month for the body to blueprint or to reprint its old patterning and its old behaviors, but that it's quite doable and it's quite possible, and that not only is it doable, possible, but that you're doing it and you can help other people be able to change and be out of pain, like they're saying, and reprint their lives and be able to copy that so they have that new picture that's actually the new picture that's staying. And for those that are interested in learning how to do this to help others, that you can do that as well. And so,
yeah, and there are also techniques that each of us can do, even if it's just listening to. I have a free meditation on my website at diamondmethod.com. It's 11 minutes. I made it short purposefully. A lot of people like to get their head wrapped around whatever a meditation when they're following. They want to imagine their body doing that. The thing that people don't realize is that when you listen to a command, like if I tell somebody, pull yourself into 18 inches around your body, that as soon as I say that, a lot of the listeners will feel their arms and legs tingle a little bit because they've pulled their energy field in. Our normal energy field is out about our arm span, and pulling yourself into 18 inches just brings you in tighter. It's a good habit to do that when you're in a crowd because you'll pick up less stuff from other people. And so in this meditation, I just go through it very quickly, and a lot of people say it's hard to follow, and I say, well, don't force it, just listen. And within 3 days after a healing session, within 3 days of listening to it, a woman who was extremely distressed emotionally and had lined up a talk therapist had just simply gotten so centered and felt so good that she canceled her talk therapist because the meditation had brought her so well into alignment and then calmed herself down. So just by doing that 11 minutes a day before she went to bed, put her body into healing mode. And that's one of the things that people can do, is that what it does is it helps drain off the negative energy, especially calming the adrenals. In this society right now, our adrenals are so overworked. A lot of people are suffering adrenal fatigue And once the adrenals are shot, the medical community says there's nothing that can be done. They're just gone. And this a little 11-minute meditation and a healing will bring them back to full function. And so, people can go on and grab it for themselves and listen. And so that's one of the things that can be done. Another thing is, what messages are you telling your body? If you're smoking, drinking too much, taking recreational drugs, not exercising, eating fast food all the time or junk food all the time, you're telling your body, I don't want to live. So one of the things that we can do energetically for our body is to take care of it. And it doesn't have to be drastic. Your habits can change slowly over time, but every positive step you take, no matter how small, even if it is to just take an extra drink of clean, pure water, or to walk one time around the block for 5 minutes, is signaling your body, I value you and I want you to be healthy. So energetically, it's what you tell your body is how you behave. It's not what you say, it's what you do. So that's another thing. So there are all these techniques that are simple, and that's what one of the things I'm going to teach in that one-day event is several things while I'm actually clearing the blocks of everybody. I can work with large groups of people. I channel so much energy. I can, when somebody needs it, they all get it, especially if they're open to it. And my daughter called one time, and my mom, my dad, and my sister were in the car with me. And my daughter calls and she says, Mom, my back really hurts. So I started healing her back, and all three of my passengers and I felt it in our back. They all piped in, we're feeling it too. So
that's great.
And people that know me, they like to sit next to me at events and networking groups, and they like it, and then they just sit there and they absorb my healing energy, and they go home for a month and they're happy. They just said, I don't know what you do to me. I feel so good afterwards.
Is that why I can hang? No, I love that so much. It's great. And we actually have another caller. We don't have a lot of time left, but I know that she's been on hold for a while, so I'd love to just bring her on. So
okay.
Hang on just one moment. Hi, Marguerite. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi,
welcome.
Thank
you for taking my call.
Of course. I saw you hanging there, and I was like, I have to get her on. Do you have a question for Anastasia?
Yes, I do. I was in a car accident in 2008, and the last year I've been trying to do more exercises because I was unable to do anything. But the more I do anything, the more pain I'm getting. But I don't want to stop.
So then the pain stays with you, or it just keeps hurting and hurting. Okay.
It's been very difficult to even sleep because I can't sleep on either of my sides.
Okay. I'm reading that there is also a chemical imbalance that's causing the problem. It's not just something physical, and it's almost like, it reads to me almost like an inflammation that's going on in there, and so the more and that seemed to have shifted from the car accident, and I think that your body is still in some sort of shock and is chemically imbalanced. And without doing any further readings, I can't really say, but I don't see that as, I think you're physically healed well enough. It's just that there's something else going on, whether it's emotional that is causing the irritation or it's chemical.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So do your joints hurt along with it? Is there like a little bit of joint achiness?
And I'm not sure. The doctor said it's not my hips, but it's like right below my hips, the thigh area. So on either side, if I lay on it too long, I get pain.
Okay.
So it would probably be a muscle.
Yeah. What's happened is that that the energy portals have shut down and they just need to be reactivated.
Oh, okay.
That's great. I love that you can see this and that you can do this, Anastasia, and that people can contact you. And so for someone like Marguerite that wants to be reactivated, or, Sandra who wants to learn, or certainly for Bree who wants to be able to have her health back and a new story in being in her body and wellness, can you tell us again how to find you?
Yes, diamondmethod.com. There's a link. You can go to contact and write me a message, or you can call the number that's on the page, which is 310-692-4036. And that texts directly to my phone, and if I'm not on another call, I'll call you right away, and if I am, I'll call you at the end of my call, because I usually work with people for an hour or two at a time on the phone, and so, I have lulls in my day sometimes, and I'll get back to you always. There will always be a response.
That's wonderful. And so for Marguerite, she would be able to recalibrate everything because of her. It's a lot. Is it an emotional response as well as her physical response where she's been knotted up, right?
Yeah, there's what happens a lot of times in a trauma like that is that important energy portals will be shut down and the body's not fed anymore. So when you try to exercise, then the pain starts to happen because it's not being fed properly. And my son had fibromyalgia from the time he was 14 until he was 24. And so all I did was open up all of his energy portals and cleared out his liver. In our society, livers are very toxic. And so one of the standard things that I do is clear the liver and re-energize it. And after I did that, his fibromyalgia went completely away, and he's been off pain medication for 15 months. So, and believe me, he was in really bad shape. I dragged him from one doctor to another, and nobody could find out what was wrong with him. He got tested for everything, and he was just in pain from head to toe. He was depressed. He wanted to commit suicide, but was in such pain he couldn't stand up to do it. So, and now he's completely out of it. Now he has a daughter. He owns a house and mows the lawn every week and doesn't have any problems whatsoever. So I'm totally grateful I was able to do that for him. And that's usually where pain stems from, is the blockage of the portals.
And I love that you do this, and I love that you have the skill. And Margarita, does that help you?
Yes, it does, very much. So thank you so much, Anastasia.
Absolutely. So I'd love you to reach out to Anastasia, and then I would love you to come back and to tell us how you're doing, and that you're pain-free. I would love that call. So that would be so wonderful.
But
I will definitely do it.
I would love to too.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Anastasia, your work is so beautiful. It really is. I feel, so grateful. And there's certain times when you meet people, on your pathway to life, and you just know that not only are they remarkable, lovely, special, wondrous, beautiful beings, but they are crossroads. Very much like, what was that in The Wizard of Oz? Go this way, go that way, and that you meet these people that direct you to the correct path in your life. And you are one of those people that you're at the crossroads for people's worlds. And by pointing in the right direction, their entire life could be pain-free. They could be off medication. They could have their energy, their vitality, their life, their love, their romance, their health, their wealth. Like you're saying, all of these things can be in alignment and be in flow and be in movement and be, as you say, sparkly and effervescent and shimmery like the diamond method healing. And so,
well, I have a backstory too. The reason why I started going to these different healers is that I was in a lot of pain. I had a huge tumor. I had very high blood pressure. All my joints were inflamed. I was quite ill. You would not recognize me how I looked a few years ago. I looked much older, much plumper, much, and I was not a happy camper. And this was despite doing all the right things for taking care of my health. And so I had to walk my own path. And the thing that I discovered, and I get to experience this every day, is that as soon as we remove all of those low energy emotions and issues, and we have these also belief systems. They're these tribal beliefs that actually don't serve us and are really incorrect, but we have them because that makes us part of the tribe. As soon as we remove all those, what's left is actually almost euphoric. I get up every morning and I do my morning clearing while I'm outside. I walk and I clear, and my whole body tingles with this euphoria, and I get to experience this every day. And then when I'm in this state is when I actually start healing. So some days I'll heal 9-10 hours in a row, and people say, well, don't you get tired? I said, no, because I'm in this constant state of this joy. I think that all of us inside, we are these joyful beings. We have this tremendous potential, and the more we get into that joyful state, the higher our energy is, and the more we'll be able to enjoy and accomplish. And people think, well, isn't that boring? No, it's not boring at all. Every day I get to experience miracles, but I know the other side. I know the darkness, and I think that a lot of us take those darkness lessons and we turn them around, and we get to appreciate the joy every day. That's what's so incredible, is that's who we really are. We are these divine beings, and we do all have the divine light inside of us, and that's why all it requires is a body to be able to do this, because that's all we need. We have it all within us. We are all divine creatures.
I love that every human being. I do. When you said that we heal every human being, I still love that, and I still love the idea. I mean, that's the whole point of this show, is to have an unlimited life. And certainly I strive, every second of every minute of every day to teach people how to be unlimited in their physical form, whether that's through, teleportation or levitation or energy healing or light, or, being able to break through walls and barriers and hurdles. And this really is the doorway. It's the gateway. It's a pathway. It's the window to the energy, to the flow, to the frivolity of the joyousness of being here on this planet at this time and in a human form, being able to experience the human body and the human life with, as we were talking about, without pain and without trauma and without having to, have pain when you're laying on your side, or when you go to exercise, or when you go to jump, or you go to run or skip or play or make love, or, wake up and sleep. And so the fact that you have taken all of your science and all of your knowledge and all of your wisdom and all of your curiosity, which I love when you talk about that you're just a little kid, and as soon as you learn there are other planets, that right away, how your mind went crazy. And that insatiable urge, as you talk about the fact that you still love to read, and you still love to explore, and you still love to learn, and that each and every piece of that puzzle that you put together, that not only is it an epiphany and aha for yourself, but that you take that information and that you share it with others, and you share it with the world, and you do it at such a deep level of love and healing, is really such an honor and such a blessing and such a gift. And,
thank you so much.
So grateful for you. I mean, really, really, truly grateful. And I, just implore people to find you. And there's no reason to be in pain. And there's no reason to be locked up or to be imprisoned by our own bodies or our own lives or our own selves, or even by an incident, as you're saying, where somebody could have been bonked on the head, or somebody could have been in an accident, and they're not even using all of their brain functionality, but simply because.
Well, and the other thing that actually imprisons people even more than their physical pain is their emotional pain. That's also unnecessary. You know, the emotional pain that people suffer, it's unbelievable sometimes when I hear what it is that drags them down, and how they also let all the other people around them drag them down. You know, we need to gain perspective on that. And because I've also lived through, I've had, marriages that have failed and really very challenging relationships that, I understand why that needs to be done. When I entered the relationships, I was like a child. I was completely innocent of alcoholism. I was innocent of abuse. And when I got into those situations, I had to learn how to take my own power back. So I help people with that too, the emotional pain. That's when I mentioned that.
Yes, when you were talking, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I love when you're talking about erasing sadness and being able to drain sadness out of the organs, or when you were talking today to our guest about the walls around the heart that keep us from loving and healing and being open, and the trust and the truth, and when you talked about the woman with the tissue box that just wept, and the fact that you can take that emotional stress and that emotional pain and duress that somebody feels, an upheaval in their own consciousness, and you can drain that away and alleviate that and cleanse that, washing the soul and the spirit, and what's left is this pristine life and this energy and the sparkle and the shine as your diamond. And so I just can't think of anything better.
You're right. And yes, and the thing is that people think, well, don't I have to work through that? Like the idea of a talk therapy has been, this has been a traditional thing for 100 years now of going to talk therapy. And I've did talk therapy for many years, and all I found it just kept dredging up the old stuff over and over, and I couldn't move on. And it didn't really solve anything. For me, anyway. Some people, it does solve it, and there are some marvelous counselors out there. But sometimes you get stuck because you do have this buried emotion, and you can't work through it because you didn't initiate it in the first place. You were born with it. You had it, or you got it when you were 2. And to be able to just drain that off and see the beautiful person emerge out of it, it's
magic,
incredible.
And you are magic. You really are, and I'm so grateful and so honored and so blessed. And we'll love you. Yes, you have permission. Scam you will do it, not on the show, and then I'll come back and tell people, but I love the fact that you're able to work with our listeners today, and that's really what's important, is that I want to give them the very best way to lead an unlimited life. So, Dr. Anastasia Chopelas, thank you so much for being with us today. You really
You're
are
so welcome.
a diamond yourself. So you are our precious gem. So thank you for being with us, and we look forward to having you back again.
Oh, awesome. I would love to. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. Wow, what an amazing, amazing guest. She's just beautiful and talented and energetic and wise, and what a gift of light and energy and healing, and reach out to her. Lead the kind of life you know that you're meant to live. And I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful week. And if you're joining us tomorrow for Hourglass Pie, we have a very special guest on, so join us for the surprise. And then next week, don't forget that we have Matt Weinstein, Playfair, talking about how to have fun in relationships. Wishing you all the very best. This is Nicole Brandon with Unlimited Life. And again, great gratitude to Dr. Anastasia Chopelas and the Diamond Healing Method and all of her remarkable energy work and talent and skill. Have a great day.